Imagine standing in front of a massive stone block carved with so many angles, it looks like a 3D jigsaw puzzle. You run your fingers along its edges, trying to slip in a coin, or a razor blade, or even a human hair, or even a sheet of paper into the seams, but nothing fits. And there's no mortar, there's no cement, it's just solid stone. And it's interlocked so tightly that it's defied earthquakes for centuries. These are the legendary multi-angled stones of Peru, and they hide secrets that could change how we think about ancient engineering. Now let's begin in Cusco, the heart of the Inca Empire. Built into the old walls of the city is the famous 12-angled stone. This block of diorite weighs several tons and it's cut into 12 precise sides, each locking seamlessly with the stones around it. And it's not just for decoration. These multiple angles, they help the wall flex during earthquakes, which is handy because Cusco lies in one of the most seismically active zones in South America. And these stones are proof that the Incas, they built their walls with earthquakes in mind. But just down the same old streets and scattered across other sites are stones that are even more intricate. Some with 14, 15, or even more sides. And then there's the crown jewel, Cusco's little known sibling, the 17-angled stone. Now this is located in Kenco. It's a ceremonial site just northeast of Cusco. And at first glance, it just looks like any other giant Inca block. But the more you study it, the more impossible it actually seems. Each angle distributes seismic pressure differently, making the wall as flexible as it is strong. Now, this wasn't just an engineer's puzzle. It was nothing like that. It was a statement, and it showed mastery over one of the hardest materials on earth. The idea that every piece, no matter how irregular, had its place in the wall. Now, some believe they were chosen for spiritual reasons. The Incas, they saw stones as living beings with energy in them, and they fitted together so precisely. And the 17-angled stone, with its extraordinary complexity, it probably was more than architecture. It almost seems like it may have been a ritual message that was set in stone. Also, side note, I do have a swollen lip. As you can see here, I've had stitches. But there's something that's more astonishing. None of these stones were held together with mortar or cement. They just rest against each other. They have flawless joints. But as I've mentioned, you can't even put a piece of paper between them, no matter how hard you try. Cusco and its surroundings are filled with multi-angled marvels. Sacsayhuaman, towering over the city, holds stones the size of small houses, weighing more than 100 tons. And they're locked together in a jagged zigzag pattern. Ollantaytambo's terraces, they show the same techniques. And of course, then there's Machu Picchu itself. So we have to now look beyond structural strength. There's symbolism. They were a way to integrate complexity into harmony. The more sides a stone had, the more remarkable the skill of the builder, the more it demonstrated the empire's power. The thing is, it's not just in Peru. Across the world, we see polygonal stonework everywhere. We see it in Bolivia. We see it in Japan. We see it in Greece. We see it in Italy. And these stones are placed with uncanny precision. Now, could these cultures have shared the knowledge, or did they all just discover the same principle by themselves? You know, was there absolutely no shared knowledge? Did they all just end up coming to the same conclusion that the polygonal stonework is the best way to work? But what unites them all is the quest to almost master nature and to transform raw stone into a permanent legacy. Now, the Incas were the master of this. Their stones were their history books, their temples, their defenses, their symbols of spiritual power. And among them, the 12-angled stone and the 17-angled stone, they stand as almost like a silent message. Question is though, was it really the Inca who built these walls? When you hear about these walls, most people immediately, they do think, it was the Inca. After all, Cusco was the capital of the Inca Empire. Now, Machu Picchu was known as they're almost like their crowning achievement. But if you look closely, a different story starts to appear from the stones. Across Peru and even into Bolivia, you'll often find two very, very different styles of construction existing side by side. At the bottom of the foundations, which are the large megalithic stones, they're irregular, they're multi-angled, and they're fitted together with such precision, they've survived earthquakes for centuries, if not thousands of years. On top of those, you'll often see smaller ones. They're uniform, but the thing is, they're usually rectangular, and they're often held together by mortar. And the contrast is quite striking. As I say, one is fluid and organic and it's almost sculpted like clay, whereas the other ones, they look more conventional and simpler, and possibly even rushed by comparison. Now, this layering has forced researchers to ask, could these megalithic blocks have been inherited by the Incas from a much older civilization? A civilization with techniques, perhaps tools, perhaps knowledge that were long lost before the Inca arrived. And the thing is, the Incas themselves, they don't even deny this. In fact, when Spanish chroniclers question them about them, they often say that the Great Walls and the Cyclopean stones, they weren't built by them, but they were built by the Viracochas. And these Viracochas are supposed to have been a mysterious people that lived long before the Inca. In Inca mythology, they were a godlike figure. They were a great creator that emerged from the Lake Titicaca. And some legends describe the Viracochas as ancient civilizers who shaped the landscape just before disappearing. Now, could these stories be of an older, forgotten culture? I mean, look, take Sacsayhuaman for example. The lower walls are made of gigantic blocks, some over 100 tons, and they fit together with dozens of angles and they almost look alive. And when you climb higher, you see the upper walls are built from much smaller stones. They are neatly stacked, don't get me wrong, but they're far less precise. And the pattern appears at Ollantaytambo, Pisac, and Kenko, and even at Machu Picchu itself. And then there's Pumapunku in Bolivia, which is part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. The stones are carved with machine-like precision, perfect 90-degree angle cuts, interlocking slots, and even drill holes, and some even weigh over 100 tons. And to this day, no one has fully explained how they were cut, shaped, or transported. Now, if this was the work of the same mysterious builders, it does suggest that their knowledge was spread across the Andes long before the Incas. Now, consider where these sites are actually built. They're always in difficult, elevated places. They're on mountain tops, they're on ridges, they're on high plateaus. These are not locations that you would choose for convenience. They were chosen, I believe, for symbolism, for a spiritual power, and perhaps they already held significance to the people who came before. But building in such extreme locations requires logistics that are even more puzzling. Dragging or somehow transporting multi-ton blocks up mountainsides before they were supposed to have had wheels or pulleys. Now, this brings us to one of the most controversial but intriguing mysteries, which is vitrification. Now, in several Inca and pre-Inca sites, the surface of the stones appears to be glassy, almost melted. The edges look like they've been heat-treated or fused. Now, how could this happen in a time without high-temperature furnaces? Was it the result of extreme heat from a lost technology that was capable of softening stone on the surface? The thing is, vitrification isn't unique to Peru. We see it in all other parts of the world, but for this example, we're going to look at Scotland. Now, in Scotland, there are some Iron Age forts that have vitrified walls, and the rocks, they show signs of extreme heat. So hot that it's fused into a glass-like crust. Now, mainstream archaeology suggests that this happened when wooden structures inside the walls, they were set on fire. And the blaze could have reached temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to soften granite. Thing is, some say that this is deliberate and others believe it was destruction. But here's the thing. Scotland's vitrification may have been caused by fire, but the stuff we see in Peru doesn't fit the same explanation. In Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo and other Andean sites, the stones don't show signs of burning or timber-scorched rubble. Instead, we see edges and surfaces that look smooth and glassy, but without evidence of massive fires. It's as if the builders had a way to apply energy in a controlled way, softening the stone just enough to shape it before it cooled down and hardened again. And the thing is, we also see this in France and Turkey and parts of the Middle East. Across the globe, there seems to be cultures that shared this strange ability of melting stone. But what does this mean? Was vitrification simply a byproduct of destruction in some cases, and in other cases it was advanced techniques? Or could it point to a deeper, forgotten layer of human knowledge, where the ancient builders across the world knew secrets of heat, chemistry and energy that we are only starting to rediscover? When you see the glassy melted edges in Peru, combined with seamless fits, it raises the possibility that ancient builders may have had a way to soften, shape, and even mould the stone that we don't understand. The way some of these stone blocks flow into one another as those soften before and hardening again. Now, this is where the theories of advanced or lost techniques emerge. Stone softening plants, for example, or chemicals, or vibrational methods of cutting, or high heat processes that could vitrify surfaces. And what's clear is that the Incas were brilliant engineers, but they may well have also inherited these stones. They may well have been heirs to a lost legacy of master stoneworkers, and they built upon it. And instead of erasing the past, they embraced it and they added their own layers onto the foundations that were already there. They would have already been ancient by the time they saw them. So the next time you see these stones, don't just admire them. Think about the story of survival in an unforgiving landscape, and a story that still challenges us today, centuries later actually, if not millennia. And it asks the same question: how on earth did they do it? Now guys, let me know what you think. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, follow, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.